Hi, welcome to episode 4 of my new series on boundaries. Today I'm going to talk about the relationship between vulnerability and boundaries. So most people think that uncomfortable feelings of vulnerability occur when we fail to have protective boundaries that are adequate to keep us feeling safe. And sometimes that's true. But more often than not, feelings of uncomfortable vulnerability come because we don't have adequate containment boundaries to protect what's vulnerable within us. Let me explain a little further. In my first video, I talked about containment boundaries as being the thing that protects you from my toxic energy or behavior, right? But containment boundaries are also what allow me to protect what's vulnerable inside me from being exposed to energy that is not respectful or that isn't worthy of that trust. Most people don't really enjoy feeling vulnerable. So why do we even think that being vulnerable is something that we want to strive for? Well, the truth is that vulnerability is the currency of intimacy. So if we are not able to learn how to share our intimacy safely, we really are closing the door on our ability or limiting our ability to have intimate relationships with others. The secret to being able to embrace vulnerability in a healthy way is to recognize that we are the ones who hold the key to deciding when and where and how much or to what degree we want to share our vulnerability with someone else. This sense of control is what allows us to begin feeling more comfortable sharing of ourselves with others because we get to decide when the time is right and to what extent we want to do that. Vulnerability is what allows us to have deeper connections with people, but that doesn't mean that we have to be vulnerable in all relationships all the time, or that we are meant to have vulnerable relationships with everyone that we meet. Often where people go wrong is when they take an all or nothing approach to sharing their vulnerability, believing that if we share more of ourselves, then other people are either going to feel close to us and trust us, or maybe they're even going to feel sorry for us and want to protect us or take care of us. The problem in this is that our desire to grant access to our vulnerability is being prompted by insecurity or a desire to feel loved maybe, that causes us to be way more vulnerable than is appropriate for the level of trust that maybe hasn't been earned yet in that relationship. In order to share our vulnerability in a safe and healthy way, we have to recognize our own role in this dynamic. And when we share maybe inappropriately and then we end up getting hurt, we can't simply blame the other person for this situation because we've played a role in it as well. When we get in the habit of giving away the responsibility for protecting our own vulnerability to other people, this often makes us feel like we have to put up really strong protective boundaries, right? And when this kind of defensiveness becomes a habitual pattern, it's not setting us up for having healthy relationships. When we get in the habit of giving away the responsibility for protecting our own vulnerability to other people, often this results in us habitually getting hurt, and we will start to put up really big protective boundaries, and that can even become a habitual defensiveness in us that actually ends up doing more to prevent us from having true intimacy in our relationships than it does protecting us from being hurt. Healthy protective boundaries are born out of an ability to adapt to the present moment and to be flexible about our decision making about when to share our vulnerability. We should be making these decisions based on what we know to be true about the other person, based on our shared history with them. Containment is an inner superpower that all of us have, but few of us really know how to use it very well. It's what protects our inner sense of integrity, and it's what determines, what is me and what is mine to own in the world and what is mine to take care of in the world. Containment is also what maintains our independence without denying connection or denying us those precious moments of unity that we feel with others when trust is in place. In order to put the full power and magic of containment into effect in our lives, we have to learn how to not only control it internally, but also how to direct it effectively outwardly. When we're directing containment internally, we're essentially creating a vessel or a holding container inside of ourselves to hold that vulnerable energy that could be released or shared with others, should we so choose to do so. But this energy should not be automatically released or shared. It's something that we should very intentionally contain inside ourselves until we decide that it's safe to discharge it in certain circumstances or with certain individuals. And as I've explained, if we put a permanent hold on this vulnerable energy or we block it from ever being released, then we rob ourselves of the currency of intimacy. Now, when we direct or express containment boundaries outwardly, this means that we honor other people's rights to have and to be in control of their own vulnerability and their own containment. We don't expect other people to feel comfortable being vulnerable with us. We recognize that it's a gift when they choose to do so. We also need to acknowledge that the way we behave and the energy that we exert or choose to release and act on is a big part of what determines whether other people will or can trust us with their vulnerability. Just as they have to earn the right and privilege to have access to or experience our vulnerability, we have to earn the right or privilege to experience theirs as well. One of the many reasons that I love spending time with horses is because they are masters at using containment boundaries to protect their own vulnerability. And we can learn so much from them just by observing and watching how they model this. If you've ever spent time trying to build a relationship with a horse, then you know that their trust has to be earned, right? They're not just going to give it to anyone. But you've also probably noticed that once you earn a horse's trust, they're amazingly willing to share their vulnerability and be vulnerable, whether it's with their bodies or their emotions or anything else. Horses also don't lump all humans together. Just because one person has earned their trust doesn't mean that they're automatically going to trust the other humans that come into their lives. But what's most beautiful about horses is that despite other experiences they've had, they're always willing to give every new person a chance to prove and to earn for themselves whether they are worthy of the horse's trust. And this is how we should be as well. When we recognize that we're the ones that hold the superpower to determine who deserves to experience our vulnerability, we become much more comfortable and confident in building healthy relationships in all areas of our lives. As always, I hope you found this information helpful, and I look forward to the 5th and final installment in this series to come soon.